Hello, true believers. It is I, your friendly local Questwise. And if you haven't guessed already, in this video, we're going to start a new series where we're going to talk about my love of all things Marvel Comics, as well as Marvel Crisis Protocol, the tabletop skirmish game, and tying it into Marvel Superheroes, the RPG from the 90s, I believe. I wanted to do this video today and start with this specifically because this video, the day it's released, will coincide with the release of Falcon and Winter Soldier on Disney Plus as well too. And just for that reason, we're going to talk about Winter Soldier as a character in Marvel Crisis Protocol, as well as how you can make the Winter Soldier, or Mr. Bucky Barnes, James Buchanan Barnes, in Marvel Superheroes. So let me get a few things out of the way. If you're not familiar with Marvel Superheroes, this game is amazing. This game is the basis of the term phase rip, and that has to do with this colorful chart that's on the back of the book. And how this works is a D100 system, percentile system, if you will. You roll your percentile, and you cross-reference with whatever your skill happens to be. You have things like feeble, poor, good, excellent, remarkable, incredible, amazing. You cross-reference that, and anytime you get a color, it's usually a good thing. A green is a success. Sometimes with certain abilities and stuff, yellows and reds will be even better. This game I played the heck out of, and it is one of my favorite all-time superhero games out there on the market. Now, it does focus just on Marvel Comics, as you can see, and all the characters that you can find therein. It is a bit dated, though I love this time period of Marvel Comics anyway. It's my favorite time period, that being the sort of late 80s through the 90s sort of Marvel era. That's kind of my favorite era to play in. That's my favorite area to read in as far as Marvel Comics. And this kind of fits into that era. So if you haven't checked this out, this is a little bit more difficult to get. I don't believe you can get PDFs of any of this. It was produced by TSR. It would be great if Drive-Thru RPG or the DMs Guild could get this. I don't believe it's on there. You'd have to go onto eBay or to some other site. The Noble Knight maybe you could get some copies of this and get this as well. It was a box set originally. I've lost my box set. I have the books left, as well as a few extra adventures, which we'll be focusing on in further videos in the future. But the books work well with themselves. And I'll talk about how you can tie that into Crisis Protocol in just a minute. If you've not been familiar with Marvel Crisis Protocol, this is a game put out by Atomic Mass Games. They are now this is their kind of baby, but they're also now the owners of the Star Wars line, Armada and X-Wing and Legion, that they took over from Fantasy Flight Games as well. This game uses a lot of similar key concepts as far as like movement and sizes of terrain and figures and stuff, but focusing on just Marvel characters. Now, what I've noticed a lot about this game too is that it does kind of fit into that 90s vibe. The outfits that the characters, the miniatures are actually based on, have that very 90s feel to them as well. This is the starter core set. It gives you 5 heroes, 5 villains, including Ultron, Dr. Octopus, Spider-Man, Captain Marvel, Captain America. There's a bunch of great stuff in here, as well as a bunch of terrain too, because terrain in this game is very interactive, and that's what I love about this game. It's things like the Hulk throwing cars at people that can happen in this game. And there's a ton. They're coming out with more all the time. In fact, yesterday they just announced they're going to have Amazing Spider-Man, Kraven, Lizard, Mysterio, a whole bunch of new stuff coming. But there's a bunch of expansions for this. You can buy individual characters. Sometimes they come packaged as 2 figures in a box. Now, I will say right away, right now, putting some of these things together, the miniatures can be a pain in the neck. They're a little bit fiddly. Most of them are on a 35 millimeter scale, which is kind of super heroic, right? But the figures themselves are very delicate. They're very fine detailed. So things like Dr. Octopus's arms are actually 3 pieces. The claw and the actual arm part itself is 2 pieces. And they can be, you just need to take time and have patience with putting these together. I'll say that right now. Other than that, the game rules are fantastic. You can download the rules for free on their website, Atomic Mass Games website, as well as a bunch of other adventures that they put out recently due to the pandemic. There are some, there's a actually solo thing versus the Hulk. There's some really cool stuff that's out there and available for this game. We want to look at Winter Soldier today, right? In conjunction with the new show on Disney Plus. Winter Soldier is one of those characters that has always been very interesting to me, right? So we have James Buchanan Barnes, or affectionately known as Bucky. He was a fellow compatriot with Captain America in World War II. He was thought to have sacrificed himself and died. His story does diverge a little bit from the comics into what you see in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it's pretty close. It's the same themes are there. He was thought dead. He was not. He was actually picked up by Hydra and brainwashed into becoming the Winter Soldier, to being used as a tool against Captain America. And there's this huge, long history of those characters coming about. In Marvel Crisis Protocol, Mr. Barnes has some great abilities. He has the ability to shoot his rifle. He has the ability to push another character away and then fire his rifle again. He also has some special training as far as his sort of Hydra training in the background. And he also has something that's very interesting. So in Crisis Protocol, you can take whatever miniatures you want. You can make whatever dream team you've ever thought of in the Marvel Universe and put them together. But it really encourages you to focus on things like actual existing teams. The Avengers, the Cabal, the X-Men, which are fairly new. You can do the X-Men if you want. Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. They kind of reward you for putting those teams together. And certain characters can use allied abilities if they're part of that team. What's great about the Winter Soldier is that he has Rogue Agent as one of his abilities, which is an ongoing thing, which means that no matter what team he joins, he acts as if he's that part of that team. That's pretty thematic, right? Now, not only is he secret agent, he could just show up and be like, hey, I'm your buddy this time. But he can also do that thing where he was a Hydra agent for a very long time. And then once Captain America interacted with him and realized who he was, and sort of brought him out of that brainwashing process, he joins the Avengers, right? He joins that team. He's back to being the sidekick of Mr. Captain America again as well, to Mr. Steve Rogers, I should say. So they become close allies again too. So it's a cool little twist, and it's very thematic. And every character in Marvel Crisis Protocol has that same thing. It's very thematic. It feels like those characters and the people who are designing this game are truly fans of the Marvel Universe and are trying to capture that feel of each character. Each character has these special abilities that really hone in on the characters that they are. Quick video today. What I plan on doing is painting each one of these miniatures, and each time I get one finished, I will do a video based upon the character. Oh, I should go back before I go any further. Winter Soldier Bucky Barnes does not, as far as I can tell, appear in Marvel Superheroes, the role-playing game from the 90s. At least I couldn't find it in the books that I own. But I think it would be a very easy character to create. In the role-playing game, you have the option of creating your own superheroes. And Winter Soldier is simply... he's simply a soldier. He's been physically trained. He has these sort of soldier-like tactics. I think it would be really easy to create him if you wanted to do more of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You could give him the adamantium arm and such, and give some special abilities to that. Maybe you could use it like a shield. He could use it. As maybe that arm is stronger than the others, he might have a higher ability score using that arm, as opposed to just as normal, like ability in that kind of in fighting technique and stuff. So it'd be very easy to create in Marvel Superheroes, the role-playing game. Now, what I was talking about before is each time I paint one of these figures, I'm going to show it to you live on the video in that particular series. And then I'm going to talk about that character, how they work in Crisis Protocol, and how they were portrayed in the Marvel Superheroes role-playing game. The Marvel Superheroes role-playing game had kind of a miniatures skirmish feel to it as well. While it is a role-playing game and you can do all the things that you can in every other role-playing game, when it came to combat, the maps that came with it were divided into areas and sections. And your characters are listed in the book as having the ability to move certain areas at a time. So the faster you are, let's say like Quicksilver, could move several areas at a time, where if you were slower, like maybe the Hulk, you could only move 1 or 2 areas. And they were sort of roughly the same size, but they tended to be like entire rooms. It was very sort of, you were in a room with somebody. It wasn't very tactical where you had a grid and you had to be within so many squares, you had to be adjacent to them. It was very kind of open in the way it was done. And it was meant to do the feeling of being heroic, that you're in a room fighting against the Hulk as Captain America. And that's one of the great things about the game too, is you can play as your favorite heroes throughout the Marvel universe. But you were in a room and you were fighting, and it didn't really matter where you were at in that room. You were just in that room doing those things. So it had kind of when it came to combat, had a very kind of miniature game type of feel. What's really cool is that it used to come with these little cardboard cutout stand-ups. What I plan on doing anytime now that I'm going forward to play the Marvel Superheroes role-playing game, which I will because I love that game, I'm going to use the figures from Marvel Crisis Protocol in conjunction with that on a table with terrain set up. And so if the things like the Hulk throwing a car, I'm going to, portray that out as the car figure being moved and slammed into somebody. So you can use those figures from Crisis Protocol and use them in Marvel Superheroes, the role-playing game. And I love that sort of that kind of crossover. I really like that feel, and I like using miniatures, especially for superhero games, because it's sometimes hard to, with all the action that's going on and swirling in a superheroes game, where things are happening all over. There's explosions and people are flying and all sorts of things going on. It's sometimes hard to visualize where everything is at. So it's nice to have some figures, some physical representations of where everything is and what's going on at the same time. So that's my plan on going forward. I want to share sort of my love for tabletop skirmish games, my love for all things Marvel Universe, as well as my love for the Marvel Superheroes role-playing game. I'm going to blend them together. I think next week I'm going to, or next video, whenever that happens to come out, approximately a week from now, I'm going to focus on Spider-Man. Spider-Man's always been my favorite superhero across any of the sort of genres of comics. He's always just really resonated with me. I love the quirkiness of his character. I love his abilities. I love the storylines that he's been involved in and such as well. So I think next time we're going to focus on Spider-Man, and I'll show you again how he works in Crisis Protocol. I'll give you a little bit of history of his character, his first appearance in the comics, how he's evolved and changed, and then how he's portrayed in Marvel Superheroes, the role-playing game. So if you've enjoyed this video, if you've enjoyed the fact that these are ad-free, and you want to support the channel in a little bit of a way, please consider it's not a thing you have to do, but as an optional thing, if you'd like to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee. And I'll put all the details on how you can do that down in the description below. Until next time, stay safe. Game on, my friends. I am Questwise. I'll catch you on the flip side.